You're not supposed to read this, not because it's hidden, but because your mind built from borrowed stories and second-hand symbols can't survive what comes next. You've spent your entire life answering the wrong questions. What happens when we ask the right ones? 1. The mirror test that you failed. Do you think you're self-aware? You think you know yourself, but your sense of self is just a sloppy feedback loop and evolutionary accident wrapped in linguistic illusions and cultural hallucinations. Let's rip that mirror off the wall. In 1970, psychologist Gordon Gallup Jr. conducted a simple test on chimpanzees. A red mark was placed on their foreheads without their knowledge, and then they were shown a mirror. Some touched the mark, recognizing themselves. Others didn't. This became known as the mirror tester benchmark for self-recognition. Humans typically pass it by 18 months of age. But here's the twist. Passing the mirror test doesn't mean you know yourself. It only means you've learned how to perform yourself. You don't see yourself in the mirror. You see your reflection, the curated ghost you've rehearsed over years of social conditioning. Every smile, every eyebrow twitch, every angle of your face has been trained for approval, for survival, for belonging. You've mistaken this external rehearsal for internal reality. Let's go deeper. Ever heard of the default mode network, DMN, in your brain? It activates when you're not focused on the outside world, when you're daydreaming, reflecting, imagining. Neuroscientists have discovered that this network lights up during thoughts about yourself. But here's the punch. The DMN is also heavily involved in creating fiction. It doesn't just recall memories, it fabricates them. It doesn't just simulate you, it invents you. So when you lie awake at night wondering who you are, it's the same neural network firing as when you read a novel or watch a movie. Your deepest sense of self is generated by the same biological mechanism that creates Harry Potter and Star Wars. You're not a person. You're a narrative function with a spine. Let's test it. Recall a painful memory, something that shaped your identity, a betrayal, a heartbreak, a fall. Can you remember it precisely? Or are you remembering the memory of remembering it? Every time you replay it, you overwrite it. You corrupt the original file. Now tell me this. If every memory you rely on to define yourself is unreliable, what exactly are you? The philosopher Derek Parfit proposed something terrifying. He argued that the self is not continuous. The identity is an illusion stitched together by causality and language. According to Parfit, you don't exist, not in any permanent way. You are merely a bundle of perceptions split across time, misidentified as a single entity, a movie mistaken for a still photograph. And yet, you fight so hard to protect this illusion. Why? Because your brain's main function isn't truth, that's survival. Truth is dangerous. It destabilizes. But lies are warm. Lies build families, religions, empires. Lies make you feel real. Even your name, this sacred sound you respond to, sent you. It's a spell, a linguistic leash. When someone says your name, you snap to attention. You reassemble your persona. Like a summoned demon in a ritual circle, you become the identity they expect. But who are you when no one is watching? Is there anyone there? Psychologists call this the looking-glass self concept from Charles Cooley. You form your identity by imagining how others see you. Think about that. Your self is based not on who you are, but on who you think others think you are. You are a mirror reflecting a mirror reflecting a mirror, until there's nothing left in the center, just glass, just cold glass. You walk through your day pretending you're a coherent being. You say, I like this, and I believe that. But if I rewound, your life changed, your parents, your language, your nation, your traumas, you'd be a completely different person. Or no one at all. Your selfhood is not rooted in anything stable. It's just the echo of your context. And still, you insist that there's a real you beneath all the layers. A soul, maybe. Something untouched. Something pure. But even that belief is just another meme, self-replicating unit of culture, passed down to keep you obedient. Religion, philosophy, therapy, all whispering that if you dig deep enough, you'll find the diamond inside. But what if you dig and find nothing? The ship of Theseus asks, if you replace every part of a ship, piece by piece, is it still the same ship? Now replace every cell in your body, which happens every 7 years. Replace your beliefs, your habits, your memories. Are you still you? Or are you a ghost inhabiting a haunted house of skin? And if identity is so fluid, why are you so terrified of letting go? You cling to names, labels, stories, trauma. Even your pain becomes a fortress. This happened to me. This defines me. You tattoo suffering onto your ego because it gives you shape. But that shape is a coffin, a prison made of mirrors. So tell me, when you look in the mirror tomorrow, will you still believe that the thing staring back is real, or will you feel the glass breathe? History is a hallucination. You think you know where you came from. You recite dates, names, wars, empires. You believe in a linear timeline that begins somewhere and leads to now. But what if history isn't a record of truth, but a weaponized dream? Let's begin with a fact. No one has any idea what actually happened. What we call history is not the past. It is a story about the past, curated by victors, edited by scribes, distorted by repetition, and then installed into your mind like malware. Not one single event in ancient history can be confirmed without relying on biased records. Every civilization, from Babylon to Britain, rewrote itself into the hero's role. The burning of the Library of Alexandria erased thousands of years of collective memory. Imagine this: hundreds of thousands of scrolls containing science, magic, myth, maps, medicinal, turned to ash. Who burned it? Nobody agrees. Some blame Caesar, others blame Christians. Some say Muslims. Some say it wasn't one fire but many. You see the pattern. Even the destruction of knowledge has no clear record. The erasure of history is itself historical. Let's spiral deeper. Did you know that the Middle Ages might not have happened at all? Historians like Herbert Illig have proposed the phantom time hypothesis, the idea that 297 years specifically, AD 614 to 911, were fabricated. According to this theory, the early Holy Roman Empire invented centuries of fake history to legitimize power. Documents were forged, artifacts planted, calendars distorted. Sound insane? Good. So does believing that every record from over 1,000 years ago is accurate and unaltered. There are entire centuries with no surviving records, and yet we fill them with assumptions and call it knowledge. You celebrate 2025, but what year is it really? Let's talk about time, this thing you think moves forward in neat, measurable seconds. Atomic clocks are accurate, right? Until you factor in gravitational time dilation, proven by Einstein's theory of general relativity. Time ticks faster on a mountain than in a valley. GPS satellites must adjust for this, or you'd get lost instantly. So even now is relative. You can't trust your own moment. You can't trust clocks. You can't trust years. And yet you're taught to measure your life in dates: birth, graduation, marriage, death. As if time was ever a straight line. Let's break the illusion even more violently. You've heard of collective false memories, right? The Mandela effect. Millions of people misremembering the same thing, like the spelling of Berenstain Bears, or the existence of a movie called Shazam, starring Sinbad. These aren't just brain glitches. They reveal how unstable cultural memory truly is. If enough people believe something, it becomes history, regardless of whether it ever happened. In 1915, the Ottoman Empire committed one of the first genocides of the 20th century, systematically murdering 1.5 million Armenians. A century later, some nations still refuse to acknowledge it happened. Governments erase atrocities with silence. They don't need to burn libraries anymore. They just need to deny. You think slavery ended in 1865. Then explain the convict leasing system, or the prison industrial complex, or how global supply chains still depend on forced labor. The story of abolition was written to soothe the conscience of the victor, not to reflect the truth of continued exploitation. You think World War II ended in 1945. Then explain the CIA importing Nazi scientists under Operation Paperclip, embedding war criminals into American aerospace programs and bioweapons labs. The line between villain and savior isn't historical, it's editorial. Now let's return to you. Your sense of identity is built on your history, your families, your cultures, your nations. But if all those histories are illusions, what are you standing on? Sand, smoke, fabrications. Your ancestors were likely colonized, enslaved, lied to, stripped of language and rewritten into someone else's narrative. You inherited the echoes of that violation. You think in the language of your oppressors. You worship in the symbols of empires. You quote books chosen by kings and corporations. There are entire civilizations that existed for centuries with complex systems of mathematics, medicine, cosmology erased so thoroughly we call them myths. The Indus Valley, the Olmec, the Nok. What else has been deleted? In 1980, a CIA project known as Stargate conducted psychic spying experiments. Remote viewing, mind projection, declassified documents show that the US government invested millions into studying altered states, time, perception, consciousness travel, not for curiosity, for control. History isn't written by the winners, it's programmed by them. And what about the way you consume history now? Through media, through curated feeds, through documentaries carefully edited to evoke emotion, but never rage. You are being spoon-fed narratives wrapped in aesthetic violence. You think you're learning, you're being conditioned. They don't need to lie outright. They just need to drown you in noise. Every museum is a trophy case of theft. Every textbook is a weapon of obedience. Every statue is a frozen threat. And every national anthem is a lullaby sung over mass graves. You sing it proudly. You call it pride. But what exactly are you proud of? What have you inherited? And how do you know any of it is real? The philosopher Nietzsche once wrote, "The past must be forgotten if it is not to become the gravedigger of the present." But you've buried yourself in the past. A past that may never have happened. A past that was designed to keep you small, obedient, grateful, sleepwalking through centuries of blood disguised as progress. So tell me, if everything you've been told about where you come from is a hallucination, how can you ever know where you're going? 3. The the self-aware void in your brain. You'd like to believe there's someone home inside your head, that there's a thinker behind the thoughts, a watcher behind the eyes, that the you who reads this sentence is the same you who will read the next. But neuroscience disagrees. Let's begin with the split brain experiments. In the 1960s, surgeons severed the corpus callosum, the bundle of nerves connecting the two hemispheres of the brain in patients with severe epilepsy. The result, their brains no longer communicated as one. When researchers showed an image to the left eye processed by the right hemisphere, the patient could not say what they saw, but they could draw it with their left hand. The verbal left brain had no idea what the right brain perceived. Two separate consciousnesses, trapped in the same skull, one body, two minds. And here you are, assuming that the voice narrating your life is the only one in charge. The truth is, your mind is modular. There is no central you, just competing processes, loosely coordinated. You are a parliament of instincts, biases, memories, fears arguing endlessly under the illusion of unity. A swarm pretending to be a king. In fact, the feeling of unity of a single self is generated by the narrative center in your left hemisphere. When presented with random actions or thoughts, it invents explanations after the fact. This was shown in studies where participants' limbs moved involuntarily, yet the brain justified the movement with a false reason. The brain lied to itself and believed it. So every time you say, "I meant to do that," or "I believe this," you're often post-rationalizing chaos. You are not driving the car. You're the GPS pretending it knows the destination, while the engine runs wild underneath. And then there's blind sight. Certain patients, due to damage in their visual cortex, claim they are blind, but when asked to guess where a light appears, point correctly. They see without seeing. Their eyes work. Their subconscious processes input, but their conscious mind is cut off from the data. So what else is your brain hiding from you? Try this. Your visual field is full of blind spots. You're not seeing reality, you're hallucinating it based on incomplete data. Your brain fills in gaps constantly, stitching together fragments into a seamless image. You've never seen reality directly. Your ears filter frequencies. Your nose filters molecules. Your memory rewrites itself. Your attention skips 99% of what's happening. Your brain is not a window, it's a VR headset built from meat and electricity, running software trained on trauma, culture, and instinct. And this headset isn't stable. Consider depersonalization disorder, a psychological phenomenon where people feel detached from their own body and thoughts, like they're watching themselves from a distance. It's terrifying because it reveals the default state you take for granted. Being inside yourself can be broken if you can lose the feeling of being you. Who was feeling it in the first place? Now ask yourself, when you meditate, or get lost in music, or stare into a fire, where does you go? When you're in deep flow, the self disappears. Hours vanish. There's no narrator, no anxiety, no internal monologue, just experience. Then suddenly, you're back, remembering yourself again. But what was there in the gap? The Buddha called it unetta, no self. Not that you have no personality, but that there is no unchanging core behind your experience. Western science is catching up to what Eastern mystics intuited centuries ago. Consciousness is a process, not a thing. A verb, not a noun. And if there's no thing behind the thoughts, no pilot in the cockpit, then what are you? A recursive loop, reacting to itself. A thought that thinks it's thinking. A flame chasing its own shadow. Let's look at the free will illusion. In 1983, neuroscientist Benjamin Libet discovered that the brain shows electrical activity called the readiness potential before a person becomes consciously aware of making a decision. Your brain decides to move before you do. Your conscious mind takes credit for an action already begun. You don't choose. You notice choices that were already made. So when you say, "I chose this path," or "I decided to be this kind of person," you are narrating a story over impulses you don't control. Free will is not a driver's seat, it's a rearview mirror. And the idea that there's a permanent you guiding the show, that's just the brain's marketing department doing damage control. Let's go darker. There's a phenomenon called Capgras delusion. A person sees their loved one but insists they are an imposter. Why? The emotional connection to the face is broken. The face is recognized visually, but feels wrong. So the brain, desperate for logic, invents a bizarre belief. They've been replaced. This isn't madness, it's the mind trying to make sense of incoherence, which means your sense of reality. Identity and truth is based not on accuracy, but emotional consistency. If it feels true, you believe it, and your entire life is filtered through that fragile filter. Now consider this. What if you're living with a socially acceptable version of Capgras, delusion, feeling like something's off, but not being able to name it? What if your sense of you is the imposter? You feel familiar to yourself, but is familiarity the same as reality, or just another trick of pattern recognition? How many times have you said, "I don't feel like myself"? What if you never were? Because if neuroscience, psychology, and contemplative philosophy all point toward the same conclusion that the self is not real, then what is left? Just awareness, just flickers, just echoes in a chamber with no walls. So tell me, if there is no permanent you inside your head, who, exactly, is reading this sentence right now? For you are not perceiving reality because there is no reality to perceive. You are not seeing the world. You are hallucinating it together, in sync, like ants following invisible trails drawn by chemical lies. Let's strip it bare. What is reality, you might say? It's everything that exists outside me. But that definition already implies a separation that doesn't exist. Modern physics has shown us the observer and the observed are entangled. The act of measuring changes what's being measured. This is not poetry. This is quantum mechanics. Let me show you. Take the double-slit experiment, the core nightmare of modern science. Fire a particle, say, an electron, at a barrier with two slits. If unobserved, it behaves like a wave going through both slits, interfering with itself. A blur of possibility. But the moment you try to observe which slit it goes through, the wave collapses. It becomes a particle, a single path. Reality solidifies. Only when you look at it, your observation creates reality. What does that mean? That everything around you, walls, trees, people, is not there until measured by your perception. And even then, your brain doesn't present what's real, it presents what's useful. You evolved not to see truth, but to survive. Your eyes, ears, tongue, skin, they're filters, not windows. The mantis shrimp sees 16 types of color. Receptors, you see 3. Bees see ultraviolet patterns on flowers that guide them to nectar. You can't. Snakes detect infrared heat signatures of prey in the dark. You are blind to 99% of the electromagnetic spectrum, and yet you believe your narrow, human band of perception reveals the real world. No, you see what your species evolved. to see. A highly selective hallucination, tuned for reproductive advantage, and your brain makes it worse. It edits reality before it reaches your awareness. Consider change. Blindness, a cognitive glitch where people fail to notice large changes in a visual scene if they occur during a brief visual disruption. Entire objects can disappear, shift, morph, and your mind won't notice. Not because you're stupid, but because your brain isn't tracking the world. It's predicting it. You live in a simulation, not of computers, but of expectation. Your visual cortex is more about anticipating what's next than recording what is. In many cases, you are seeing your memory of reality, not reality itself. Let's go deeper. You touch a table. It feels solid, right? But atoms are 99.99999999999% empty space. What you feel is not hardness. It's the electromagnetic repulsion between electrons in your hand and the table. You are not touching the table. You are experiencing resistance to overlap. At the quantum level, nothing ever actually touches. So if nothing touches, nothing is solid, and nothing is fully seen. What is your world made of? Assumptions, maps, projections, fictions that function well enough to keep your meat alive, but they are not truth. Even time is a fabrication. Einstein proved that simultaneity is relative. To events that appear to happen at the same moment to you may occur at different times to someone moving faster. There is no universal now, number, single, shared, present moment. So when you say, "This is happening," you are speaking a local dialect of existence, a temporal accent. Everything you perceive is local, personal, partial, which means the very idea of an objective reality becomes a fantasy. The philosopher Immanuel Kant put it like this: we can never know the thing in itself, das Dingen. Sich, we only know the phenomena, the appearance filtered through our senses and categories. In other words, reality as it is forever sealed off from you. You live behind a perceptual firewall, and that firewall isn't passive. It has an agenda. Psychological studies show that your brain automatically rejects data that threatens your identity. This is called motivated reasoning. When presented with evidence that contradicts your beliefs, your cognitive systems don't just resist, they fight back. They rewrite memory. They increase emotional arousal. They double down. You aren't looking for what's true. You're looking for what feels safe. And the brain will happily burn the truth alive to protect your narrative, which brings us to perceptual adaptation. Your senses adapt to constant stimuli. Put on inversion, goggles where up is down and left is right, and within a week, your brain will rewire itself. You'll function normally in a world that is literally upside down. Take the goggles off. The real world will feel wrong. For a while, you'll stumble through reality like a drunk god waking from a bad dream. Your sense of what is normal is not objective. It is learned, trained, installed, and it can be reinstalled. So if your sight is incomplete, if your hearing is narrow, if your touch is an illusion, if your sense of time is flexible, if your brain edits reality to match its expectations, then what the hell is left? A hallucination you call life. A well-designed dream with recurring symbols, faces, gravity, language, hunger, love, but none of them point to anything real. They point only to your nervous system, and even that system lies. Take the rubber hand illusion. A fake hand is placed in front of a person, while their real hand is hidden. Both are stroked in sync. Soon, the person feels the fake hand. as their own. When the fake hand is hit, they flinch. They feel pain in what was never part of them. Now scale that up. Your body, your world, your thoughts. What if they're just the rubber hands of your consciousness? A convincing trick, a beautiful lie. The philosopher Thomas Metzinger concludes, nobody ever had or was a self. There is no center, no anchor, no truth behind the veil. Just veils behind veils, spinning endlessly. So tell me, if every sense lies, if your mind deceives, if your body obeys illusions, and if reality collapses, the moment you try to observe it, then what exactly do you think you're waking up into every morning? 5. Memory is a weapon you point at yourself. You believe your memories are sacred, personal, that they define who you are. But memory isn't a photograph, it's a knife, and you're the one twisting it. Let's destroy the altar. When you recall a memory, you think you're opening a file, looking at something preserved. But modern neuroscience tells us this. Every time you access a memory, you rewrite it, slightly, subtly, and then you store the new version, not the original, never the original. Memory is not retrieval. Memory is reconstruction. This is called memory reconsolidation, process by which the brain modifies memories every time they are recalled. So that argument with your mother, that kiss in the dark, that moment when everything changed, they're gone. What remains is a simulation of a simulation, blurred by time and poisoned by bias. You are not the sum of your experiences. You are the sum of the lies you keep telling yourself about your experiences. Now meet Elizabeth Loftus, cognitive psychologist. She implanted false memories in test subjects, convincing them they were lost in malls, attacked by animals, or even committed crimes. Some remembered the events vividly, even when they never happened. Think about that. You can remember things that never occurred with full sensory details, emotional responses, and confidence. So how many of your memories are real? Can you prove your childhood? Or have you been repeating stories so long you've started believing? The echo's memory isn't yours. It's inherited, shaped, filtered. You remember what your culture allows. You forget what your identity can't survive. There's a phenomenon called cultural memory, where entire societies selectively remember events. Germans are trained to remember the Holocaust. Americans are trained to remember 9/11s. But where is the memory of the massacres, the coups, the slavery, the bombs dropped by their own hands? Buried, muted, censored. Your personal memory works the same way. You remember your heartbreaks more than your joys. You obsess over shame, regret, pain, not because they're truer, but because your survival brain tags them as dangerous. You relive your worst moments so you can avoid them in the future. But they don't help you survive. They rot you. Psychologists call it the negativity bias, the tendency of the brain to focus on negative experiences more than positive ones. Your memory is designed to protect you by keeping you wounded. You carry emotional corpses so your mind can study how they died, and you call this growth. But how can you grow when every thought drags you backward? Every time you remember being humiliated, you re-traumatize yourself. Every time you recall what you lost, you rehearse grief. You memorize your own downfall. You paint your inner walls with scenes of betrayal. And then you sit there wondering why you feel so trapped. Your memory isn't a museum, it's a prison. And then there's semantic memory, the memory of facts, names, concepts. You think this is objective, but how many times have you sworn something was true, only to find out you were wrong. This is the illusion of truth. Effect when repeated statements begin to feel true, regardless of their accuracy. You don't remember what's real. You remember what's repeated. So what are beliefs then? They're memories that survived long, enough to fossilize. Beliefs are hardened memories, and once hardened, they filter new informations, so you only notice what confirms them. It's called confirmation bias, and it ensures you never escape your own delusions. So let's ask, who benefits from this design? If your memories are unstable, vulnerable to editing, biased toward pain, and selective to what feels safe, then your mind is not a temple, it's a political regime run by fear, nostalgia, and ego. Even your sense of continuity, that feeling that you today are the same you as last year, is a fabrication. Psychologist Daniel Kahneman draws a distinction between the experiencing self and the remembering self, the one who lives moment by moment, and the one who narrates it all after the fact. The experiencing self might be in pain for 10 minutes, but if the last 30 seconds are pleasant, the remembering self reports it as a good experience. So we make life decisions based not on what we lived, but on how we remember living it. You are ruled by a ghost, a biased, blind archivist who misfiles every page and burns what it dislikes. You say, I remember who I was, but there never was a was, just a smear of neurons echoing in a meat suit. And this ghost, this remembering self, it doesn't just recall, it creates. Try to remember your first day of school, the smell, the fear, the color of your backpack. Now ask yourself, did you remember it? Or did you imagine it, based on a photograph, a story, a feeling? This is the effect where you mistake imagined events for real ones. Your brain doesn't label memories with timestamps or sources. It doesn't care about truth. It only cares about narrative. And the scariest part, your identity depends on these unreliable, distorted memories. If I erased them, who would you be? If I gave you false ones, loving parents, lost siblings, wars? You never fought, wouldn't that become you? So tell me. If memory is a tool of delusion, if your past is a myth you retell in different words, and if your very self is anchored to stories that may never have happened, then who, exactly, are you remembering? 6. Language is a spell you're under. You were speaking in chains. You were born into a prison of words, and you never noticed the bars because they were shaped like meaning. Let's tear the language open. You believe that words describe reality, that you say tree and the sound carries the essence of the thing outside. But language doesn't reflect the world. It replaces it. Take the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis of theory in linguistic relativity. It proposes that the structure of a language determines the way its speakers perceive and think about the world. If your language lacks a word for a concept, it becomes nearly impossible to think that concept. You don't speak language, language speaks you. Consider this, the Pirahu people of the Amazon have no specific words for numbers. They use vague terms like few and many. When tested, they could not perform basic counting beyond 2 or 3, not because they're unintelligent, but because their linguistic framework simply doesn't allow it. If your language can't contain an idea, your mind can't either. Think about the word I. You use it thousands of times a day. But what is it? A sound, a symbol, a placeholder for something that doesn't exist. The ancient Greeks didn't have the word I the way we use it now. And yet, here you are, defending your identity using a pronoun that was handed to you like a leash. You're not expressing yourself. You're obeying a script written centuries ago by people you'll never meet. Even your emotions are coded in language. Some cultures have dozens of words for grief. Others don't separate shame from embarrassment. In German, there's Weltschmerz, the ache of realizing the world will never match your expectations. In Japanese, Natsuka, sheer nostalgic longing for something that never really existed. In English, sad. Your feelings are being filtered through a lexicon too small for your soul, and yet you shape your entire life using this brittle system. Think of how many times you've said, "I'm fine," "I'm depressed," "I'm in love." Each sentence reduces an ocean to a drop. You compress the infinite into syllables and then worship them as truth. But what happens when the words are wrong? This is semantic satiation. Say a word too many times, and it loses all meaning. Pain, pain, pain. Until it sounds like a noise, until it becomes absurd. That's your entire language. An infinite loop of symbols collapsing in on themselves. Wittgenstein wrote, "The limits of my language mean the limits of my world." You live inside a dictionary-shaped cage. You don't feel reality. You label it, and the label becomes the experience. You never saw a sky. You were told to call it that. You never heard a song. You were taught to separate music from noise. You were born into sound, light, sensation. But the moment someone handed you language, the magic broke. Words replaced wonder. Labels replaced life. And yet, here's the darkest part. Language didn't just remove mystery. It installed control. Governments don't need to censor truth. They just redefine it. A civilian becomes a target. A massacre becomes a conflict. A lie becomes spin. A crime becomes policy. This is doublespeak, a term coined by George Orwell. It's not fiction. It's the default setting of power. Words don't describe the world. They distort it, reframe it. They are used to bind your perception to someone else's will. Even your personal truths are infected. When you say, "I'm not good enough," whose language is that? Where did you learn the grammar of self-hatred? Who taught you that failure means you're broken? You didn't invent the words you use to punish yourself. You inherited them from parents, from school, from religion, from media. Language is ancestral trauma passed down through metaphors. Take the word sin. In Hebrew, it originally meant to miss the mark. But over time, through translation and dogma, it became "you are evil." That's the power of a single word. It can mutate from mistake to identity. So, when you speak about yourself, understand you're casting spells, you're invoking systems, you're perpetuating prisons. This is linguistic determinism. You are not who you are. You are what your language permits you to be. Now take a breath. Listen to the voice in your head. It's talking, isn't it? That endless narration, that mental chatter, it's made of words. But what is that voice, really? Just the software of language running in the meat machine of your brain. You confuse it for your soul, but it's a chatbot, a parrot, a narrator glued to a puppet that thinks it's real. You can't stop it. Try, go ahead. Try to stop thinking in words for 1 minute. See. Language has colonized your mind. You dream in it, fear in it, love in it, but you don't control it. It controls you, so tell me, if every thought you have is written in someone else's language, have you ever had an original thought? 7. Time is a lie you tell to avoid dying. You say things like "I don't have time," or "time heals all wounds." But time isn't something you have. It's something you've been trapped inside. Let's cut open the clock. Time feels obvious, right? Seconds become minutes, become hours, become days. You grow older. You remember yesterday. You fear tomorrow. But that entire experience is a hallucination stitched together by your brain to keep you functional. Physicist Carlo Rovelli puts it bluntly: there is no time. In quantum mechanics, fundamental equations describe events in terms of relations, not sequence. There's no before and after, just correlations. Time doesn't pass, it's constructed, a feature, not a fact. Even Einstein showed us that time is not universal, it's local, subjective. Relativity tells us that time slows down near mass and speed. Clocks run slower in gravity wells. Astronauts age slightly less than you. The GPS on your phone has to correct for this, or you'd get lost walking to your own kitchen. So, if time can be stretched, bent, paused, was it ever real, or was it just a useful illusion? Now look at your own life. You assume your memories are stacked neatly in a line. Past gives, present gives future. But as we've already seen, memory is unreliable, fluid, altered by mood and suggestion. The past isn't behind you. It's inside you, warping the now. The future, that's imagination, projected fears, hopes, scripts. But none of it exists. It's all fantasy. The only real thing is this exact moment. And yet, you're never in it. Why? Because your brain is a prediction engine. It's not designed to live in the present. It constantly forecasts, simulates, anticipates danger. That's how you survived predators. That's how you plan revenge. That's why you lie awake at night rehearsing conversations that will never happen. Your mind doesn't want now, it wants next, and because of that, you experience temporal dislocation, chronic sensation of being out of time, always behind, always late, always overwhelmed. It's not a schedule problem, it's a perception disorder. Let's test it. Stare at a clock with a ticking second hand. Wait for it to move. Did the first tick feel slightly longer? That's the chronostasis effect. Your brain inserts fake time so your perception doesn't jump. You literally hallucinate continuity. You don't experience time. You simulate it, and then you get older. You feel like life speeds up. Childhood summers lasted forever. Now years pass like blinking. Why? Psychologists call it proportional time perception. When you're 10, a year is 10% of your life. At 30, 3%. At 70, less than 1. Your experience of time shrinks with every breath. You don't feel more time passing. You feel less of it. And what do you do to fix that? You plan, you schedule. You organize your hours like their currency. You wear watches like shackles. You call it productivity, but it's time, anxiety or fear that you're running out of something you never actually had. Because here's the secret. Time is just entropy. The second law of thermodynamics says that systems tend toward disorder. Ice melts, bodies decay, order breaks down. What you feel as time is just the increase of entropy. Time doesn't move. Decay does. So death isn't in the future. It's happening right now. Every cell that dies, every breath you exhale, every memory you forget is proof. Time is the name you gave to dying, so you wouldn't have to call it what it is. Let's go deeper. In some tribal cultures, the future is behind you because it's unknown. The past is in front because it's visible. In the Aymara language of the Andes, this is how they see time. It's the opposite of what you've been taught. So even the direction of time is cultural. Your calendar, a colonial artifact. Your hours, carved by capitalism. Your weekends, engineered for labor cycles. Nothing about your sense of time is natural. It's all scaffolding to control you. Time isn't freedom. It's obedience. Even the way you measure your life, birthdays, deadlines, anniversaries, is a form of ritualized panic. You fear wasting time. But what does that mean? Wasting what? Can you hold time? Can you point to it? Can you give it to someone else? Of course not. You say time heals, but healing takes process, not time. You say time will tell, but telling requires truth. You say in time you'll understand, but understanding requires confrontation, not waiting. Time doesn't fix. Time doesn't clarify. Time doesn't love you. Time is a hallway with no lights, and you're sprinting through it while trying to decorate the walls. Why? Because if you truly stop, you'll feel it. The truth, not that you're out of time, but that you are time. That every second you live is not a moment in time, but a moment as time. And that means your death isn't coming. It's already happening. So tell me, if time isn't real, if your memories lie, if your future is fiction, and if your now is just entropy wearing makeup, then what are you really counting down to? 8. Death is not the end, because you were never alive. You walk through your days believing you're alive, that you are a living thing moving toward a dying thing. But what if you were never alive in the first place? Let's tear down the myth of life. Start with the question no one dares ask. What is life, exactly? Biologists will mumble something about metabolism, reproduction, homeostasis. They'll say living organisms respond to stimuli, grow, evolve. Fine. So do viruses. So do AI models. So does fire. Fire consumes fuel, grows, spreads, reacts to its environment, dies. Is it alive? You say no, because it doesn't feel alive. And here's the trap. You only define life by how close it resembles you. Anthropocentrism, the narcissism of biology. If it thinks like you, eats like you, screams like you, then it must be alive. But if it exists in silence, in patterns you can't perceive, you call it dead. Let's go deeper. A single-celled amoeba can learn. It solves mazes, avoids danger, recognizes patterns. It has no brain, no consciousness, but it adapts. Mimosa pudica, the sensitive plant, recoils from touch. You can train it to stop responding by showing it the touch is harmless. It remembers, it learns. But it has no neurons, so what is consciousness doing that these unconscious systems aren't? Maybe less than you think. You experience your life as a stream of awareness, a movie, a timeline. But neuroscientists cannot find any unified center of consciousness in the brain. No spotlight, no projector, just regions firing in chaotic synchrony. You are not a mind inhabiting a body. You are a process pretending to be a person. And when that process stops, what exactly is lost? You say they died. But what? Does that mean that their lungs stopped moving? That their hearts stopped beating? That their name no longer appears on screens? Every cell in your body is replaced over time. Your skin regenerates. Your bones renew. Your memories rewrite themselves. The person you were 10 years ago is gone, already, now dead. So what exactly is dying when death finally comes? Just the illusion of continuity collapsing. There is no you to end. there was only ever a flicker pretending to be a flame. Consider clinical death. The heart stops, the brain lines, but some people come back. They report tunnels, lights, voices, but brain scans show that activity spikes during those last moments, producing visions as the system shuts down. So were they, glimpsing an afterlife, or hallucinating the collapse. You fear death because you think it's the opposite of life, but it eyes in single quotes, death is the condition that allows life to appear. Without contrast, there is no boundary. Without darkness, no light. Without death, your illusion of being alive couldn't even be recognized. The ancient Stoics meditated daily on their death, not to be morbid, but to see clearly, to strip away the noise of living and feel the raw, cold truth. You are always on the edge of vanishing. The Tibetan Book of the Dead describes death not as an ending, but as a mirror, stripping away of illusions, revealing what was always there: nothing, not darkness, not peace, not suffering, just emptiness. And maybe that's what frightens you most. Not that you'll die, but that you never truly lived. That your job, your dreams, your relationships, your victories were all performed by a thing pretending to be someone. A corpse walking in slow motion toward a moment it already rehearsed. And you've tried to escape it through religion, through legacy, through children, through art. But these are not escapes, they're disguises. You don't want to be remembered. You want to be real. But if your life was built on memory, identity, language, and perception, and we've already broken every one of those, then what exactly do you think is worth preserving? We bury the body. We mourn the image. We light candles for shadows. But you were never alive. You were a system, a habit, a chemical echo. And when the last flicker fades, there won't be a scream or a silence. There will be nothing. So tell me, if death isn't coming for you because you were never there to begin with, then what, exactly, have you been trying to survive? 9. Love is a drug your brain makes to keep you quiet, to whisper that love is sacred, that it's the highest human emotion, that it saves, heals, elevates. But love isn't holy, it's chemical, evolutionary, cold. Let's poison the well at its root. Love is dopamine and oxytocin, to molecules that hijack your body like a dealer handing you a euphoric leash. You don't fall in love. You get chemically addicted to another person. You feel butterflies. That's adrenaline. And cortisol. You feel safe with someone. That's oxytocin flooding your bloodstream during prolonged eye contact or sex. You feel heartbreak. That's your brain entering withdrawal, like a junkie denied their fix. You're not in love. You're on drugs. And the worst part, you're manufacturing them yourself. Let's talk about mate selection. Evolutionary psychology doesn't care about romance. It says you're drawn to symmetrical faces, specific hip-to-waist ratios, deep voices, particular scents because they signal reproductive fitness. Your subconscious is constantly scanning for genetic compatibility and social status. Your soulmate is a statistical hallucination. Romance novels and rom-coms taught you to believe in destiny. But behind every love story is a brutal algorithm. Age, proximity, fertility, utility, trauma compatibility. You fall in love with patterns that mirror unresolved wounds, what psychologists call repetition compulsion. You aren't finding home. You're returning to your damage. You love what reminds you of your original pain. Your heart isn't opening, it's looping. Let's get darker. When you say I love you, you're often speaking from fear. Fear of abandonment. fear of loneliness, fear of being unseen. Love becomes the currency of validation. Say it, hear it, say it again, like a mantra, like a cage. And what happens when love changes? You say it wasn't true love, but neuroscience shows that long-term relationships undergo chemical shifts. Passion dopamine declines, bonding vasopressin, oxytocin increases. Your brain downregulates thrill and replaces it with attachment. You didn't fall out of love. Your receptors got tired. You call it boredom. The body calls it homeostasis, and then you cheat, or leave, or stay and die inside. Because no one told you love is not a promise. It's a biological trick to keep you breeding and nesting. You think love is unique. Ants love their queen. Birds mourn their mates. Elephants caress their dead. Monogamous animals exist across species, but not because of romance, because it increases offspring survival. Love is just evolution's leash, wrapped in poetry, and the poetry is the worst part. All the songs, the films, the novels, they trained you to expect transcendence. But love has a body count. Wars have been fought. In its name, families destroyed, empires shattered, obsessions mistaken for devotion, abuse disguised as passion. Because if love is pain, at least it's something. And in a world this numb, something feels like salvation. But what you call love is often codependency, the collapse of boundaries, the merging of identities, the sacrifice of self to avoid abandonment. You don't love them. You need them to confirm you exist. Without you, I'm nothing. That's not love. That's annihilation wearing lipstick. And yet, it feels so good, doesn't it? The warmth, the safety, the illusion that someone sees you, understands you, would die for you. But how many times has love made you disappear? How many times have you silenced yourself to keep it alive? You give and give and give, not because you're generous, but because you're terrified of being unloved. You become what they want. You shrink, you bend, you lie. That's not love. That's self-erasure. And still, you crave it, because love is the only socially acceptable form of madness, a sanctioned hallucination, a ritual of mutual delusion, a pact to believe the other is more than they are. Love blinds you, and you beg to be blinded, because the alternative, being truly alone, feels worse. But what if aloneness isn't emptiness? What if it's the first real thing you've ever felt? What if love was never the point? So tell me, if love is a chemical, if your soulmate is a trauma pattern, if devotion is just dependency with good lighting, then what exactly have you been sacrificing yourself for? 10. Your beliefs are parasites that chose you. You believe in free thought, that your ideas are yours, that your opinions are earned, that your convictions are the product of logic and evidence. But your beliefs are not you. They are viruses that infected your mind and convinced you they were truth. Let's dissect the infection. In 1976, evolutionary biologist Richard Dawkins introduced the concept of the meme, not cat pictures or dance trends, but units of culture that replicate by leaping from brain to brain. Ideas, behaviors, phrases, ideologies. A meme doesn't care about truth. It only cares about replication. You don't choose your beliefs. Your beliefs choose you. Let's test it. Do you remember the moment you chose your religion, your political views, your ethics? Or did they simply arrive in your consciousness through parents, friends, school, media, culture? Beliefs aren't adopted. they're installed. Your mind is not a temple. It's a host. And beliefs are the symbiotes crawling through it, rewiring your perception to ensure their survival. Some beliefs are aggressive. They dominate your speech. Some lie dormant, activating only when threatened. Some disguise themselves as virtues. Others hide behind humor, sarcasm, nationalism, love, and all of them demand loyalty. You don't question them because they've convinced you they are you. But ask yourself, if you were born in another country, into another faith, with another language, would you still believe what you believe now? Of course not. So what exactly is your truth? A regional infection. Take the backfire effector, cognitive bias, where, when confronted with evidence against your belief, you don't change your mind, you double down. Your brain protects the belief like an immune system fighting off a virus. You're not reasoning, you're rationalizing, defending the parasite that owns you. And then there's belief, perseverance. Even when the original basis for a belief is discredited, the belief persists. You remember the belief, but forget the debunking. It lingers like smoke after the fire is gone. You think you're being objective, but your brain is an echo chamber lined with infected mirrors. Now go deeper. Religions, governments, corporations, they all operate on mimetic warfare. They compete for attention, your attention. Why? Because attention is the gatekeeper of belief. You only believe what you notice. And what you notice is what's fed to you. Algorithms don't just show you what you like, they shape what you become. You are fed ideas based on emotional resonance, what makes you feel seen, angry, righteous, afraid. Emotions lower, critical. Thinking, repetition increases familiarity. Familiarity feels like truth. So eventually, you don't remember when you started believing. You only remember that it feels right. This is the illusory truth effect. Repetition equals belief. Even when false, say it enough, it becomes real. I'm not good enough. They're the enemy. This is the only way. I deserve this. Taught you these spells? And how long have you been repeating them like prayers? Now let's detonate the core. Even your identity is a belief. I am introverted. I'm a hard worker. I'm not lovable. I'm smart. I'm broken. I'm healing. None of these are facts. They are stories chosen to explain pain or preserve ego. And once repeated, they calcify. You forget they were optional. You forget you could have believed something else. Belief creates perception. Perception reinforces belief. It's a closed loop, a belief trap. And here's the horror. You may never escape it, because when a belief system is threatened, the believer experiences existential terror, not because they're losing an idea, but because the idea was the scaffolding of their self. Pull the belief out, and the whole house collapses. But maybe that's the only way to be free, to demolish what never belonged to you, to stand in the raw, howling void of thoughtlessness. No dogma, no conviction, no comfort, just silence, just awareness, just nothing. So, tell me, if your beliefs are infections, if your mind is just a host, and if your identity is a story told by parasites, then who or what have you really been serving? 11. The universe doesn't care about you, and it never did. You want to believe the universe has a plan, that things happen for a reason, that there's a rhythm to it, awesome invisible architecture with you standing at the center, glowing with purpose. But the universe doesn't notice you, because you're not even a whisper in its void. Let's erase the spotlight. Our galaxy, the Milky Way, contains over 200 billion stars. Each star may host its own family of planets, and that's just one galaxy. There are an estimated 2 trillion galaxies in the observable universe, stretching outward in every direction, faster than the speed of light, into an abyss we can never fully map. And you're a carbon blip, a ripple in bacterial slime, muttering thoughts for a few decades before being reabsorbed into soil. But you still say, the universe gave me a sign, did it? Let's examine the math. The observable universe is 93 billion light-years wide. Light, from most places, hasn't even reached us yet. You see only a sliver of all that is, and even that sliver is delayed. When you look at a star, you're seeing ancient photons, dead light from dead things. The present isn't visible, it's inaccessible. So how could a universe you can't even observe care about your job interview, your heartbreak, your prayers? It didn't notice your birth. It won't pause for your death. It doesn't track your thoughts. It doesn't read your posts. It doesn't whisper in patterns or align stars for your healing. It is indifferent, still not convinced. Let's visit the cosmic microwave background, radiation, a faint afterglow of the Big Bang stretched across the sky. It's not a message. It's residue, noise. The universe isn't talking. It's cooling, slowly, eternally. And it will end. The second law of thermodynamics ensures heat death, a future where all energy is evenly distributed and nothing can happen. No movement, no light, no thought. Just perfect stillness. Everything. You know every atom, every memory, every dream's spiraling toward silence. There is no cosmic justice, no karmic balance, no feedback loop of morality. Good people suffer, monsters thrive, children die screaming, dictators die peacefully in palaces. There is no ledger, no divine accounting. The scales were never real. Only your need for fairness keeps the illusion breathing. Let's make it worse. Consider Boltzmann brains, a thought experiment in thermodynamics. In an infinite universe, it's statistically more likely for a single conscious brain to pop into existence from chaos than for the entire ordered cosmos to evolve as we observe. You might be that brain. Your entire life, this entire universe, a self-coherent hallucination before your thoughts collapse again into nothingness. And even if not, you're still in a universe where the most common form of matter is dark matter, and the most common force is dark energy, both of which we don't understand. You're surrounded by invisible forces. You don't even know what most of the universe is, yet you say, I trust the universe. That's not trust, that's delusion. Let's go deeper. Your atoms were forged in dying stars. Supernova ripped elements into existence. Your iron comes from violence, your calcium from collapse. Your blood is stardust. Yes, but not the poetic kind, the exploded kind. You were born from chaos, birthed by thermonuclear screams, and one day Earth will be swallowed by its sun. Our oceans will boil. Our atmosphere will peel away. Our buildings, our books, our digital dreams erased. The Andromeda galaxy will collide with ours. Stars will be flung. Time will stretch. Gravity will pull light into silence. And none of it will remember you, your name, your love, your laughter, your pain, all forgotten. So why do you pretend that the universe is watching? Because you're afraid. Because insignificance terrifies you. Because if the universe doesn't care, then maybe nothing matters. But that's the truth, isn't it? Nothing matters. not inherently, not cosmically, not eternally, and maybe that's freedom. But before you grasp for hope, remember this isn't about hope. This is the raw, skinless truth. The universe was not made for you. You are not its center. You are not its goal. You are not even its accident. You are its symptom. So, tell me, if the universe doesn't know you, if the stars will forget you, if the cosmos is moving toward a frozen grave, then what have you been pretending your life means? 12. Consciousness is not what you think it is, because you're not the one thinking. You believe consciousness is sacred, the one untouchable core of being. You say, I think, therefore I am. But what if the I is a glitch? What if thinking is the illusion and consciousness is just the noise left behind? Let's burn the myth of awareness. Start here. Neuroscientists have never found a single location in the brain where consciousness lives. Not in the neocortex, not in the limbic system, not in the pineal gland. Slice the brain in every direction, there is no throne, no center, no ghost in the machine. You assume your awareness is unified, singular, a spotlight beaming down onto your thoughts. But studies show otherwise. Consciousness is distributed, split across modules, each handling fragments, language, sensation, memory, vision, intention. Your experience of wholeness is an after-effects story your brain tells itself after stitching the data together with duct tape, and the delay is real. You think you're reacting to the world in real time, but there's a half-second lag between stimulus and awareness. Your brain predicts your reactions, initiates them, and only afterward informs your consciousness you decided that. You're not the author, you're the narrator, and even that's being generous. Consider blindsight, again. People with damage to their visual cortex claim they are blind, yet they can still navigate obstacles. Their bodies see without them. Consciousness isn't required. Or look at automatic behaviors, driving a car, typing, playing an instrument. You perform complex tasks while your mind floats elsewhere. Who's in charge then? Not you, just muscle memory, neural patterning, reflex wrapped in routine. Let's break it further. What if consciousness is not a driver, but a passenger? Not a flame, but the smoke. This is the theory of epiphenomenalism, that consciousness is a byproduct of brain activity with no causal power of its own. Like a shadow cast by fire. It doesn't do anything. It just appears. Your decisions made unconsciously, your thoughts, surfacing from nowhere, your feelings, interpreted after the body has already responded. And still, you cling to the voice in your head, the endless whisper narrating every moment, the internal monologue that feels like you. But that voice is not you. It's a simulation. Split-brain patients remember them. When the left and right hemispheres are disconnected, each side of the brain begins operating with partial autonomy. One side believes in God, the other does not. One side can speak, the other cannot. Two selves in one skull, unaware of each other. Which one is real? Neither. Because consciousness isn't a self, it's a process. Let's go deeper. In deep meditation, thought stops. In flow states, the self vanishes. Under psychedelics, the ego dissolves. What remains? Awareness without boundary. But not your awareness, just awareness, which suggests the most terrifying truth. You are not conscious. Consciousness is happening, yes, but it is not yours. You are just the temporary pattern. It passes through. Let's use a metaphor. Imagine the brain as a radio. Consciousness isn't the music, it's the signal. It flows through the circuits, but the circuits don't own it. The music ends when the power cuts off, but the signal continues. Indifferent, moving on. You've mistaken the hum in the wires for identity. You've mistaken reception for selfhood. But if that's true, then there's nothing personal about you at all. You are a transient structure, an echo chamber for awareness to play inside. And when the structure collapses, awareness doesn't die. It just moves, or stops, or was never alive to begin with. Now consider this. If consciousness is just a side effect, if the self is a hallucination, if every thought is post hoc, if the voice in your head is a reflex, if every emotion is chemical noise, if every memory is fiction, if every identity is a story, then who is awake inside you right now? And what if the answer is no one? So tell me, if consciousness doesn't belong to you, if you are not the one doing the thinking, and if the self is just static in a dying signal, then who the hell has been pretending to be you this whole time? 13. The body is not you. It's a puppet of meat, wired for decay. You look in the mirror and say, "This is me." You point to your hands, your face, your voice, your scars. You think your body is your home, but it's not. It's a machine, malfunctioning and programmed for death. Let's unpeel the skin. You are made of trillions of cells. They do not know you exist. They're not yours. They're self-replicating micro-machines with their own agenda. Survival. Mitochondria inside your cells are descended from ancient bacteria, foreign invaders, domesticated through symbiosis. Your energy comes from alien DNA. You are not a body. You are a colony of microbes, viruses, bacteria, and proteins pretending to be a person. Your gut contains over 100 trillion bacterium, more than the number of human cells in your body. These bacteria control your digestion, your mood, even your decision-making. They release neurotransmitters. They influence cravings. Some scientists call the gut the second brain. You are a meat puppet driven by intestinal flora. Now consider your skin. It's not a barrier. It's a living ecosystem. Microscopic mites live in your pores. Fungi colonize your toenails. Bacteria feast on your sweat. You are never alone. You are never clean. Even your brain, your sacred throne, surrounded by parasites, plastic residue, heavy metals, Every thought is happening inside a polluted, infected, slowly rotting husk, and this husk is dying every second. Cells are dividing, mutating, aging. You shed 500 million skin cells every day. Your bones decay and rebuild. Your blood cycles every 80 to 100 days. The you recognize doesn't last. It renews itself through death. Your body is a continuous autopsy in progress. And yet, you call it mine. Let's break the illusion further. You don't control your heartbeat. You don't control your liver. You don't consciously blink, breathe, salivate, digest. The body moves you. You're just tagging along. Try holding your breath until you die. You can't. The brainstem overrides your will. You are not in charge. You never were. And what about your immune system? It identifies, attacks, and kills threats without your awareness. Sometimes it turns on you. Autoimmune diseases are the body devouring itself, mistaking self for invader. Lupus, MS, Crohn's, diabetes. The body's confusion made flesh. How do you trust a self-destructive machine? You break a bone, it repairs, but imperfectly. Scar, tissue forms, misalignments persist. You lose strength. The body remembers trauma not to heal it, but to cauterize it. Survival, not perfection. Let's talk about pain. Pain isn't a signal of damage, it's a prediction. Phantom limb pain occurs in arms that no longer exist. Chronic pain can persist long after the injury has healed. Your nervous system creates suffering without cause. The body is a hallucination engine, constantly guessing. Even your sense of motion is a trick. Your vestibular system in the ear, combined with vision and muscle feedback, creates the illusion of orientation. Spin too fast, and the illusion breaks. You vomit, you fall. You lose all sense of where you are in space, and your body betrays you in ways far darker. Alzheimer's doesn't just erase memory, it changes personality. A body with the same name, the same voice, but the person is gone who was in control. Who is left? Alz traps you inside. You're self-conscious, alert, but unable to move. Locked-in syndrome does the same. Coma, brain death. Vegetative state. The body can keep functioning long after the self is absent. So where is you in all this? Is it the face? Faces, age? Is it your voice? Voices change. Is it your body? Bodies rot, bodies break, bodies betray. You feed it, you wash it, you protect it, and still it punishes you. You suffer disease, deformity, desire, addiction. You chase beauty, starve yourself, inject poison, cut and slice and modify. You try to tame the flesh, and in the end, the flesh wins. All bodies end in meat. That's the truth no one wants to say. Not spirit, not legacy, not transformation. Meat, bones in boxes, skin in fire, organs liquefying in soil, and even before death, the decay begins early. Your spine compresses in your 30s. Your immune system weakens. Your memory falters. Your vision blurs. Your hearing fades. Your genitals lose function. Your bones thin. Your sleep fractures. Your muscle dies. The body isn't a temple, it's a timer, and it's counting down. So tell me, if your body isn't you, if it lies, leaks, ages, and forgets, if it functions without permission, and if it dies long before it's dead, then what are you really pointing at when you say, "This is me"? You've been lied to. Now what? You've just seen the wiring behind the illusion, the stories, the identities, the beliefs, the fake stability. None of it was ever yours. So stop pretending. Stop building castles in someone else's dream. You don't need more comfort. You need clarity. You need control. You need to build your own system, one that uses the illusion instead of being used by it. This isn't the end of your sanity. It's the beginning of your sovereignty. Here's what you do, next step by step. 1. Stop outsourcing meaning. Nobody is coming to save you, not God, not the universe, not your favorite motivational guru. You are the system. You are the glitch. You are the architect. Act like it too. Build a system that exploits reality's loopholes. You now know reality is subjective, belief-driven, programmable. Use that. Install a daily belief system that makes you unstoppable. Gives reframe pain as fuel. Gives reprogram your habits like code. Gives exploit emotion, momentum, storytelling for your gain. Point 3. Kill the ego. Replace it with execution. You don't need more opinions. You need outputs. Create like a god. Build like a machine. Don't ask, "Am I ready?" Ask, "Did I execute today?" 4. Monetize your awakening. If the world is fake, money is just the most powerful illusion. Master it, leverage it, stack it, and don't apologize for winning in a rigged game. 5. Leave your mark in the chaos. Nothing matters. Good, that means you're free. So create what you want. Say what others are afraid to say. Be the signal in a world of static. Truth summary. Reality is a hallucination. You are not who you think you are. Everything ends. Nothing matters. That's your ultimate advantage. Final word. You have two options now. Collapse back into the illusion. Let the lies rock you to sleep again. Pretend, obey, decay, or use the void as a weapon. Think sharper, move faster, create louder, build in the face of death. This is your warpath now. No saviors, no heroes. Just you, fire in your chest, chaos in your hand, and a hunger the world can't understand. Now go, break the simulation, own the system, burn the script, rewrite the world. Welcome to post-reality. You're home now.